Welcome to the Good GMs Podcast. I'm E.E. Morris, and today's episode is The Devil Wears Plot Armor. And now here's James and James. So very good.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to, and viewers, and welcome to another episode of Good GMs Podcast. I'm James, and I am not joined today by my co-host Chuck, who is off trying to take over the world. What he's doing, we will never know. But today's topic is actually similar to that. I'd like to introduce a guest. You've met him before if you've been listening or watching the episodes. Well, I guess listening. I've brought back my friend and good GM, James Ross, to join us to talk about the Big Bad.
Hello, James.
Hello, James. Before we get started, how you doing? Have you played anything fun lately? Is there any update on your game that you've been working on? Or
I'm pretty good. I've been working on my game and not playing games as much. So.
Yeah, fair. It's funny. I've been working on the game that I've been running is Nyarlathotep, and I haven't really had time to play anything, so I understand.
Yeah.
But we got to make time for fun as well. But this will be fun, I'm sure. So it's funny. The reason I thought of this topic, there's a few reasons, but one is because I'm running Nyarlathotep, which is a huge game that spans time and the entire planet and beyond. If you really want to get into the details of where Azathoth is, there is a lot of machinations. There's a lot of cult leaders in other countries working together right now, trying to bring about whatever it is. And I won't spoil it for anybody, but that's part of it is like, how do I figure out what, the leader of this cult is doing while the players are off, Scooby-Dooing it off to the library together? What are these guys working on to foil their plans to stop the end of the world? So yeah, that's the topic. What do you think?
Well, I think to start with a summary, I think Masks of Nyarlathotep is such a celebrated module in the same way that Curse of Strahd is so celebrated in D&D, in that the villain creates the setting, the villain creates the entire adventure, and has such a strong personality that is affecting everything the players are doing.
Mm-hmm. Even if they haven't met him yet.
So many dungeons in this hobby, whatever a dungeon is.
Yeah.
There's a level 17 whatever at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not compelling. And so we find that
it's just sitting in that room, right?
Yeah.
Just waiting for you to walk into it. But what was it doing before you guys entered the dungeon, and what is it doing while you're trying to jump over traps, right? Yeah, I get that. That's, one of the other reasons that I thought of this topic is one of my first exposures to role-playing games was Vampire the Masquerade. And that's a freaking crazy one as a GM, storyteller in that case, where you have to know what, 15 vampires are doing on any given night in the city, so that when the player characters happen to walk into the blood hut or whatever the name of the bar that they hang out at is, who's sitting there and who are they talking to and what deals are they making. And you can either make it up as you go, or you can spend time planning these things. So
how every single person feels about the prince and every other single faction.
Right. It's a lot of work, but to make a really immersive, good feeling game, like my good GM who ran me through that was Jason, or Jason as we called him. He was phenomenal at that. Like, he knew where every NPC was on any given night, and yet he did it while saving up his Ritalin so that we could have it to hang out all night and play. That never happened. Don't do that at home, kids. But yeah, it's pretty wild when you have the capacity to do that. And unfortunately, I really want to. And yeah, I'm using a module, but I'm also thinking about what the players affected while they were playing. How does that change the plans of the Big Bad? What would you say is a good strategy as a way to sort of put your brain in order to do that between sessions?
I think often for me, the way I keep track of it, I think of how the villain is getting their information. There's going to be actions by the players they're going to notice. There's actions by the players they're not going to notice. There's actions or just a happenstance in the world that is the news is going to trickle to the players at about the same time as the villain. There's some things the villain's going to get first. And then, the adventure's never quite on the rails, but the players are going to go back to their home base eventually. They're going to attack a certain sub-villain eventually. And then you can highlight those being like, this would be important to the villain.
These are linchpins of the big story, yeah.
And so on my normal adventure note page, where it would just be like, this is their headquarters, I would take a pen of a different color, the villain color, and just like put a circle on it, on the page itself, being like, this is a villain spot. This is a part where the villain is noting, and this will have some effect on the villain's attitude towards the party, some effect on their long-term plans.
Right.
And
now, do you ever roll for that stuff? I know this is silly, and it probably is a dumb question, but I remember times where the players would do something, and I would have the main villain had people following them, and I would roll off camera, to decide whether they caught those things that they did, or if they happened to lose them, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Do you let the dice decide what's happening off camera, or as a good GM, do you think it's fair to do those things?
Well, I have a whole philosophy statement for that. That's
okay.
So, okay. One could imagine that you create a birthday card for your mom,
right,
with random rolls. You could make a table that said page 1 of birthday card, and it would have a list of graphics like puppy, duckling, roses, whatever, and then message. And you could roll out a birthday card for your mother, but it would be heartless.
Right.
How about you just write a nice note to your mother who is different than other mothers?
Specific to your relationship with them, yes.
At the same time, though, a randomly rolled birthday card for your mom is better than no birthday card for your mom.
Right. I'm obsessed with the idea of being fair. And so unfortunately, sometimes when I'm doing these things, it's like, did the heroes like sneaking into this place? Like I had them roll and they did well. Do I need to also roll to see spot hidden on the big bad to see if they caught them? But
the villain getting advantages over the party
is the story.
Is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It creates opportunities for them to play the game.
What the players are unaware of won't not hurt them.
Yeah, you're not being unfair.
Because your job is to tell a good story, right?
You're creating a crisis for them to solve.
That's right.
And making a game possible. Yes.
Smart. Yeah.
Yes. If it was 2 players spying on each other,
then
that element of fairness comes in. It's different because the villain is both an NPC in your head, but also the primary plot point for the whole thing.
Yeah, if he misses the important details, then all of a sudden the players are running around without any
what are we doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's fair. And I guess there would be times where I do it and times that I don't. And I think if it's on camera, in the sense that if it's at the table, I'll roll because that's fair to say, did the guard see you? Did the big bad happen to be watching at that time or whatever while you were breaking into his apartment? That's fair. But when it's behind the scenes stuff, this is just us. Like, wait, are we the big bads? Wait, we are the big bads. We're the machinations. We're the ones deciding how to ruin the lives of the player characters. I get it. Mm-hmm. Fair.
So yeah, the best thing for the villain to be doing is finding the weak spots for the players, the things that really hurt them, character-wise, not your players themselves. Don't make the people at the table cry, but it is important to their characters.
Yeah.
We get so many RPG horror stories of people being edgelords and like just trying to disturb the actual players at the table. That's consequential to the fictional characters.
Exactly.
To attack them there and just almost destroy them. And then have the narrative turn around and the players come back.
Right. I think you said something last time we had you on. We had you on the show. You said something along the lines of, always make your players think that they did a bad job, or so they barely succeeded. They always make them think that they barely succeeded.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of this topic, right? Like that's
just sell it a little bit. Just spin things a little bit, like. Their most common attack, their biggest spell and stuff. Somehow you forgot about it.
Yeah.
They were so clever coming up
Oh,
to this.
why did I not think you'd use the
Yeah.
fire?
Oh no, you used your longsword. Oh, and I guess he's
Oh,
dead. Yeah.
yeah.
You can't oversell that. You can't get caught.
Right.
But
Well,
it's a game.
like that time when I had this hundreds of years old Chinese wizard turn himself into a dragon at the Great Wall of China to seize the power of an amulet, and I had an 8-year-old or 10-year-old boy genius with a slingshot. That was pretty great. And that, for the listener, that was a game I ran with James.
Savage Worlds has those exploding dice.
Yeah, you can't do anything, but you got to be happy when it happens, because that was a great ending to that story. Like, it could have gone on for Savage Worlds combat could have gone on for another several hours. But in that circumstance, I couldn't think of a better way for that to end. But we're getting off topic. I just love that story, and I think it was a good end to a big bad. But what I would like to do now is sort of like draw back a little and start from the beginning, right? The player characters aren't anything to the big bad until they're noticed. So at first, the big bad's going to get away with everything, right? They've got this plan to turn, let's use the kingpin. He wants to become mayor of New York, and he's going to, get rid of all the vigilantes or whatever. He just wants the power. He just wants nobody to stand in his way of making money and killing people and doing what he wants until Daredevil shows up, right? And he's not aware of Daredevil until Daredevil makes an appearance. So
that's one. I'd say there's sort of three archetypes.
Please. Yeah, let's do it.
So I think that's the most reasonable one. That's how things happen in real life most of the time. Somebody's trying to do something bad and you get in the way almost by accident. I think there's also this sort of Magneto Charles Xavier model where they're friends, and the tiny disagreement that seems like it was tiny to begin with turns them apart, and they become adversaries. So your big bad could start as your friend,
right?
And then you slowly build a split,
like Clark and Lex in the show Smallville.
Yeah.
just to get off Marvel for a second. Anyway,
and then there's the sort of dark mentor type thing. If you think of Unbreakable, Mr. Glass sort of fosters a hero. Sometimes you'll see the villain sort of pumping up a hero at the beginning of the story, expecting them to just be a pawn in their big evil plan.
And then the heroes find out that they're...
and they pull out of that thing. So
like the wizard coming into the bar to send them on the adventure could be the big bad at the very end of the adventure.
Big bad,
yeah. Okay, I like that. So let's again zoom out for a second and say, okay, so the villain has a plan from the start, and you're the one creating that plan, or it's in the book that you're using as a module, but that villain has a plan from the start. And until the player characters start interfering with that and changing that plan, having them come up with like, damn it, they foiled this thing, but I still have a plan. How do you plan? Like, how do you work that? Do you have an idea before you start the campaign, like a line that you've drawn, or you know what I mean? Like, what's your strategy before you've even had players come to the table?
For me, when I love doing the epic length campaigns, 100 sessions plus. So for that, I let it cook for a good 15-20 sessions.
So you have them
laying
doing
hooks,
unrelated things, but with those
they're
things.
Doing ground level, basic, save the little village from the monster.
Yeah.
And just in the way they interact with people in the world and stuff, I can start to see the values of the party emerging, the things they care about, the things they don't care about. And then those values and those concerns show me the villain. The villain is going to be the mirror image of that.
So you didn't have the villain when you started the campaign?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
Well, it depends on the campaign.
Right.
The Game of Thrones campaign, you kind of, that's so political that it's going to be a political adversary from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
I did a Fallout game and I had no idea.
Right. That's fair. Yeah. So that's more of a, you start the game with the genre in mind. and then you go into you start creating your big old story arc.
Mhm.
See, I think back, and I like to talk about, I mean, kids today, right? They don't understand what it was like to have 24 episodes of a TV series in a season. So
Yeah.
you could have your, let's go investigate the Sasquatch in this town, and let's go fight the little vampires that are attacking our high school, so that by episode 4 or 5, we get our first appearance of the big bad. And we maybe realize or don't realize yet that that's going to be the big bad. And then so it's like episode 4 or 5, we get the first appearance. Episode 8 or 9, we get his first intervention into trying to destroy the party. And then by episode like 12, 13, we have a 2-episode arc with him or her as the big bad. So that by the time we get to episodes 20 to 24, we know what we're up against, and we've already had time to assemble our forces.
Yeah, that one season, and then in further seasons, you would only get that big bad 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Until that final season arc, suddenly you're getting a lot of the villain.
Well, and assuming they didn't get rid of that villain and have a new big bad for every season, depending on the show. But no, exactly. And that was the joy of having the 22 episode series. The bad side to the 22, 24 episode series is a lot of garbage to slog through if you didn't watch it from the beginning. But try watching Buffy now. I loved it, but you can't really, there's no going back. It's really hard to do. But that said, in that sort of way, I had something and I forgot. In that sort of way, so your style is start with the one shots, the one off episodes where they're just doing this and that, and then you come up with the big bad. How do you decide when they're intervening? When do they make their first appearance? What's your example? I think the first time they appear, they should kick the snot out of the players, but they should barely escape and go, how are we going to do this? Right? That's to me if assuming you're going to do it in that format.
Again, I believe in my colored markers. Probably, about session 15 or something, when they take out some villain, some sub villain, like some little monster in a cave or something, I decide okay, this is finally related to the big bad. And even then, I might not have formed exactly what person. It might just be a sort of faction or something.
Right before they kill the minor villain, they're like, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're up against. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
And then I just have that circled, and then the way that minor villain dies or is defeated or something like that gives me clues.
Okay.
What did the players like about defeating them? Oftentimes players get these trash talk moments, when they finally beat some player and somebody does the kill blow or something like that, and the types of things they say will tell you what they valued about overpowering this type of evil. And you can sort of see what the sensitivities are, and you're like, oh,
okay, write that down. Yeah,
this group seems to be concerned about maybe sort of elitism and bullying and stuff like that, or this group is more concerned with different forms of evil,
right?
And just tailoring it in.
No, I like it. I like that. That's smart. I had a couple more questions in mind before we've got some time here. I just want to make sure I cover my bases here. Let's start with, how do you set the clock so that the players know? This is part of what I wanted to talk about, because I mentioned in the example with the 24 episode season, there's a big chunk of time where the players, the player characters have to amass their big strategy, or get an army together to protect the village that's about to be attacked, or find the magic MacGuffin that's the big bad's weakness. How do you set a clock? Because in Masks of Nyarlathotep, they don't know there's a clock until a certain point, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is a big conspiracy and there's a time frame, and oh my god, if we don't move quicker, we're gonna die. How do you sort of instill in the players that they're starting to figure out that the clock is ticking and that they have to start working? Or do you do that and just let them
the speed of plot is tough. It's one of the toughest aspects of being a dungeon master, is balancing this sense of immediacy and importance, and keeping that energy and anxiety up to make it feel like what you're doing is both important and has to keep moving, but at the same time not pushing to paranoia,
Right.
and over planning and things like that. You want to engender both a sense of wonderment and a sense of pacing.
Right.
And it's constant, but it's both sides. You have to correct, like paddling a small boat, canoeing, where you moving the paddle back and forth so the boat doesn't wiggle. It's
Right.
just constant course corrections of like when they are sitting around too much and not accomplishing things, then remember there's a time limit.
Right.
When they are throwing away good gaming opportunities, thinking they have to pursue the time limit, suddenly you're emphasizing that the time limit isn't real. But
yeah, how do you
keeping that subtle
when you set
yeah.
when you set that when you light that fuse?
Yeah.
How do you get them to stop for a moment and enjoy the one-off episode again, right?
Yeah.
So I get that. That's tricky. And would you like? I mean, let's talk specifics. Would you employ, like, in my mind, I'm thinking if I want to get the players back on track, I can utilize one of their beloved NPCs. You know, not necessarily kill them off every time I need them to care, but like maybe they get a note that's like, I'm going to meet this person, I'll call you in an hour, and then they never call back, and you're like, oh, that's not right, you know, like we need to investigate now. Or, you know what I mean, like how
Yeah.
much of that do you, how many times do you poke them? And what are some subtle ways to do it so it doesn't feel the same every time, like that you can I'm asking tough ones, I'm sorry.
You got to feel it out, and
Yeah.
it's got to be. I mean, you always want to be re-establishing the theme, mood, and tone of the game you're playing. If you're playing Masks of Nyarlathotep and it's international pulp adventure with this dark cosmic horror thing, I would actually.
I like to throw in dream sequences to bring it back.
Yes.
To the topic. Yeah.
Oh my God. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. That one works for me. And also like including new NPCs that are just like, you know, they've seen something, and, you know, just to be like, you know, they run into them somewhere or whatever, like just to put them back there. Right.
Yeah.
Put them,
Just
like,
a telegram that's just like a very odd person was asking for you.
Yeah.
Dream sequences, you know, there's the sanity mechanic. If there's any sanity lost, not only does the character have the symptoms reported in the role, you can be like you see a little bit into the eldritch workings of the universe,
through the mythos.
And maybe the tendrils of Nyarlathotep or something. You could just see them for a second, like Frodo putting the ring on, and suddenly there's that eye again. Like,
right. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Yeah. No, like I had a player recently have a mental break, and we decided it was like he didn't understand, or he had this bizarre realization of how time works. You know, like, because he saw somebody who had painted a picture of something that he had seen years earlier, but the painting happened years later. And it was like he was starting to have this slippage of that. That's perfect. He can start having visions of the future or the past. You know, is it happening now? Is it, you know what I mean? Like I can work time into it. And maybe he's watching, you know, when he closes his eyes, there's a clock ticking whenever, every so often, to say, we're running out of time here, and it's ticking backwards or something, you know, like counting down or something. Like, yeah, that I like those things, like using the stuff that's happened in the game to sort of remind them what's.
Yeah, it's a creepy Egyptian clock that like has the theme of
yeah. And then the last thing is what kind of things would you do to make sure, like, so one of the problems I have is I like to come up with good ideas for characters, and we're going to do a whole episode, I'm sure, on NPCs and how to make them unique and what kind of ideas you'd have. But in particular to the big bad, like I've got this, you know, sometimes I want the guy that's just unflappable. No, is that the right word? It's like he's unshaken by anything. Like he's always, you know, like
stoic, and like
it's like when you go into that boss's office and you're like, I hate this guy, but I understand why he's the boss, because he's got the authority and he knows how to wield it. You know, that idea, or the absolute unhinged, like, the Joker, right? You've got your Joker, and you've got your Kingpin, the two like opposite types of bad guys, like, in a way. I'm sure that we really delved into their characters. There's a lot of commonality, but like the Kingpin is always together, and he's like, go ahead and face me. And the Joker's just like, okay, well, this is fun, but let's blow something up instead. Right. Like, what sorts of characteristics do you like to give to your big bads, or can you do to make them stand out from the minor bads?
I think there's as many personalities for villains in fiction as there are works of fiction.
Okay.
There are villains. You can just take any person, any personality, any set of traits, and then just say they do bad things.
Sure, fair,
and it works. And it works. And so the best villain characteristics are the one you invest in,
mm-hmm.
the one you're thinking about, the one you're feeling, the one you're like. I mean, I
that's fair. There was too.
I'll sit there and talk in the mirror in a villain voice.
Well, yeah, okay. So that's what I'm asking for, is what tips do you have?
Especially a long-term villain where like they've been doing sort of off-screen things that the party has been discovering. You go to a village and something horrible has happened because this villain has ordered it, and you finally get that point where you're face to face with the villain, and they're going to want to trash talk them, and there's going to be the standoff. You want it to be good. I'll sit there and talk to myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
When I'm going for long walks and stuff, I'll sit there and I'll do little bits of dialogue and stuff like that. And I think it's not so much optimizing the perfect set of traits for a villain. It's once you've just decided anything, once you have a start, investing in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Liking
it's like acting. It's like method acting in a way.
Yep.
It's like getting it in your head. What would this guy say if and when anything else is said, and how does he do it without giving away how do I have a character that will outsmart the player characters, but will eventually be outsmarted by them without practice? I guess that's
and the best villain is the one that makes your skin crawl.
Yes.
And that can start anywhere.
Yeah.
Any person, just any personality type, and then they do bad things.
Well, in a way, like, as well, a lot of villains in the media, at least in the first, the sequels will change, but the idea that they're a mirror of the hero. So to create a villain that works for your party is think about like you said early on, what are the traits, what are the list of like moral like things that this party takes, like holds a lot of sway, like the things that they stand for, and then kind of mirror it for the villain to not stand against, but the opposite things that they stand for. Not necessarily like the obvious, like the hero is just the same guy as the villain with a different outfit. Like, I mean, more just like the Lex Luthor to the Superman, or the Joker to the Batman is a great example, because the Batman's like logical and all together, and the Joker is just random, so that nobody can predict what he's going to do next. I definitely a lot to take out and a lot to work with. And again, if anyone is, listening who wants to join our Patreon and, ask these questions in the Discord, join us at patreon.com/Good GMs Podcast. Don't forget, you have to have a Patreon account. So when you sign up for your Patreon account, you're not actually signing up for us. So it's a 2-step process. But if you have a Patreon account, just join us. And then if you have questions, I'll pass them along to James. If you think he's got better answers than this James or Chuck, which is fine. I brought him on as an expert because I know I've worked with him, I played with him, and I know he's really good at the big picture stuff that I would love to learn more about, because remember, practice makes gooder. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for our listeners and viewers. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching. If you like or dislike what you heard, let us know. If you want to suggest an idea for an episode, ask the host a question, or just tell Chuck and James what you really think of them, join our communities at patreon.com/Good GMs Podcast, or find us on the usual social media platforms. For now, I'm E.E. Morris,
and you're all good GMs.
We are so grateful to all of our Patreon supporters. At the gooder level, Weird Candy. At the good level, Carl Kiesler, Preston Dubose, Francis, and me. Yes, E.E. Morris. I put my own money to back our projects because we're all good GMs.